Hey guys, Bencb here, and today I would like to study a little bit with you together. I'm going to review a couple of hands from my last Sunday grind, a couple of spots where I was not really sure what strategy to apply, and I think I also did a couple of mistakes, so I want to share that with you that you can make it better and you're not going to do the same mistakes as I did. And I also, in certain spots, took some very unusual lines, and I just want to make sure that they're not completely out of line. So yeah, grab a carrot and then enjoy watching this video. So let's start with King 10 suited here. I, of course, open raise and big blind calls. We're playing, I think it's a 100K guaranteed $500 tournament on party poker. And this is a very interesting flop. And in game, I decided to check back, which I didn't really like at this point in time, because if we look at our open raising range and our value hands, we are playing only 35 big blinds. And when it comes to betting on the flop, you always need to keep in mind how your range connects with this board. Of course, it looks like a very scared board, but you have a ton of sets, you have all queen tens, you have a ton of top pairs, a lot of very strong draws. And even your semi-bluffs like king, queen, ace, queen have a decent amount of equity. So, and you're not going to open deuces and threes here probably, so maybe just fours, fives, sixes, and yeah, a couple of ace highs. So the part of your range that doesn't really connect with this board is very, very little compared to other board textures. Let's say the board is 7, 8, 6. You have a bunch more king queens, king jacks, ace jacks that only have overcards. But here, even our Broadway hands somewhat connect with this board. And apart from all the overpairs we already have, we have a lot of sets and some two pairs straights and also very strong draws. So this should always be an indicator for you that you can easily bet your entire range here. However, I did a mistake and checked back. It's not a huge punt. It's not a huge mistake. Because there are also certain hands we might be want to be checking back with like ace 9 or king 9. But I think in practice, c-betting those hands as well is slightly better than checking. If you get raised, keep in mind, you have a ton of nutted hands. You have hands like nut flush draws, sets, hands like queens, jack 10, something like ace 10 in spades. You have so many hands you can easily continue with against the raise. Even if you have aces or kings and I play against someone I don't know so well, I would probably bet and fold against the raise, or maybe call once but then fold the turn. You should never stack off with aces or kings on this board here against a random player. So I opted to check back, and now villain leads into me. I think his sizing is very well chosen. He should definitely be betting on the larger side. He wants to apply maximum pressure. But before we're gonna go into my turn decision, I just wanna quickly share my result in Pyro. Of course, I also would like to know what theory advocates. I'm always a big believer in that you should always try to solve a hand based on what is best against a specific opponent, but it can never be too bad to back that up with theory to check out, okay, what is actually the right strategy? Because if we, let's say, we look into our small betting strategy and you see that he's supposed to be raising 16% of the time, and we look at these type of hands here, we can, and then let's say he raises, and let's see what we should be continuing with. And if we look at the EV, for example, of kings, you can see it's very, very close. So what I like to do with Pyro is, if I play against someone, and I would never consider him raising 16% in this spot here, I know for sure that kings is a good fold, and this gives me the confidence to make those laydowns because I can clearly see those numbers that even against the wide raising range or relatively wide raising range, kings and aces are super marginal. So the only hands, and even a hand like king queen with a gutter is a very easy fold. So it's a very easy bet fold. And you can see that even king jack, right? If we bet and get a raise, we are folding those hands without the backdoor flush draw. King jack off, ace-9. You don't need to be sticky with those hands, even against someone that is raising a theory frequency, which is supposed to be quite wide. And I don't get these people that hate GTO so much, because it's a great tool to illustrate you how you should be playing in theory. But if you know that someone is not playing theory, you can deviate from theory and make good folds. If you never look into that, how are you supposed to know that you can already start folding top pairs against the raise? Right? And that's the point. Of course, you should always try and solve spots with your brain, with logic and the reads you have, and try to gain the maximum EV that is possible. But always checking what theory advocates in certain spot and apply that to practice and see if that makes sense, if someone is raising those frequencies or not. And then based on that, you draw the right conclusions. So let's say if I play against someone that I would consider as quite tight, and I probably wouldn't assume he's raising so many semi bluffs here on this board, like what else he could be raising with, like 8-7 or 7-5, or what else could he be raising with, like king 10s, ace 10s. I think most people, or ace 7s, queen 7s, are just calling it way too frequently. So for that reason, I'm then easily probably folding even king jack with a backdoor flush. However, if you play against someone you consider as overly aggressive, you should just call all your king jacks and ace jacks. But finding out this threshold, which pairs you want to start folding, gives you a lot of clarity and a lot of confidence. And next time you know, okay, on these drawy boards, and you can even categorize. You keep in mind on these medium connected boards against someone you or in theory, and you face a raise and you don't know really what is up to, just fold your king jack. It's always going to be the right play. And if you know that the guy is probably under bluffing, you can start folding aces, kings on the flop, and you can make some really sick exploits. But if you never check out what is the right play in theory, it's really hard to make those exploitative plays. So keep that in mind. But here we check back. The turn is a 5 in hearts, and then villain bets big into us. And of course, I mean, you can already see on our flop strategy here, we should be betting pretty much everything with a small sizing. This board just coordinates so well with our range, and we barely have any natural give-ups or natural air hands that, yeah, we just want to be betting everything. It makes a lot of sense. I didn't see it as quickly as in-game. If we check back, it's pretty much just a few of those king 10 combos and ace 9s and king 9s and queen 8s, which makes a lot of sense, which only happens around 4 to 5%. So yeah, as I said, as you can see here, king 10 on the bottom right, DVs are relatively close, definitely a solid play. And if you play against someone very aggressive that raises a lot, I would definitely advocate to check back, and I mean raising more than theory. So I opted to go for a call, and the turn is a very interesting card. The question now is, he checks to us. What are we going to do on this run out? We don't really have that many hands that are going to checking back the flop with. So first of all, we're barely going to be in this game tree. So I don't want to prioritize this spot so much, because now I learned the quote unquote mistake happened on the flop. So I'm not going to study in depth what I'm going to do on this river, but now I already started the sim, so I'm definitely going to check it out in case it happens again, but it shouldn't be, because I'm just going to bet everything. So this line check back flop call turn is barely going to happen in the future. Speaking about effective learning, guys. Here on this river, though, we want to be thinking about what are we checking back with, what are we calling the turn, and then turning bluff on the river. It's clearly some king 8 combos, it's clearly some ace 8 combos, maybe something like ace 5, which is very close, but I think we should be folding on the turn. But the 8x hands are probably good enough to call once, because he's going to bet pretty much any queen, any 10 on the turn. And there will be some bricks on the river where you give up, it goes check, check, and we win the pot. We improve to some trips and 2 pairs. Or you will slow down on some cards that might improve our range. So let's say the turn is the river is a king, and he has something like 10-4 suited, and he just gives up because the king coordinates with our check back range. these kind of situations can all occur. Thus, we should probably be calling any 8 on the turn. So he bets into us, and yeah, if we have ace 8, oh no, actually we're wait, no, we're checking. Sorry, we check back 5, and he bets into us. No, sorry, he bets into us, and yeah. So actually, we are folding the 8x combos quite significantly. Yeah, I think I would have been a bit more stickier with the 8x on the turn. I thought overall we have more equity, but as you can see here, it's very, very thin. And if someone that is very passive, just don't stick around with those 8x hands, just fold them. However, what we want to find out here is whether we want to be turning our hand into a bluff. So he checks on the river to us, and what is important, or what determines whether we want to turn this hand to bluff or not, is our kicker. He's probably betting 10-6. He's probably betting 10-4 suited, 10 deuce suited, queen 10 king 10 as well, 10 deuce suited, 10-3 suited. It's probably defending 10-6 off to a certain frequency as well. So we're gonna win the pot. Sometimes he might be betting the turn with something like queen 9, ace 9. Not sure. Should he be betting queen 9? Let's see. Yeah, to a certain frequency. Queen 9, ace 9. So those hands are also betting a bit, or even something like 9-6. So yeah, we definitely have enough showdown value against this range. So, of course, we also have some queen X in our checkback range. Remember, we barely check back, so it's really hard to break that down in theory. We might have some ace queens, we have definitely some queen 8s, queen 9s that we're checking back with. We probably want to make a thin value bet with, let's say, pocket 10s that we check back with. So we do want to find some bluffs. And yes, we beat some of the 10x, but we also he also has a bunch of jack X, something like jack 4 suited, or ace jack, or king jack, or jack 3 suited, that he might be folding against the bet, because what is he really beating? Pretty much nothing. So yeah, I think it's a reasonable hand to check back with. It's also a reasonable hand to turn it into a bluff. So he checks into us, and no, sorry. Let's see what he does. But since I think we have more value in checking back and being good against the 10, he could be trapping with his nut flushes now that our queen X are betting. What's turn 10? Check. And yeah, and you can see that king 10 is mostly checking here, like pretty much always. So hands we're turning into a bluff are like the ace kings. If we just are we calling king 10s on the turn? Are we supposed to call? Yeah, the ace king and spades. Well, okay. Yeah, keep in mind these frequencies here are very, very low. Like if we squared normally, you can see that the frequencies here are so insanely low. Like it's basically just 4% of our flop range. And then he checks. And yeah, I mean, we don't have any ace king combos, so it's just the nut flush we're betting with. Then the ace 9s we're turning into a bluff. King 10 with the king and spades we're turning into a bluff, and that's pretty much it. It's not that not like that we have insane amount of value combos. So it's basically just the ace 9, king 10 with the king and spades, and that's it. So the king 10 and spades hearts we're checking back. Of course, it's just toying around a little bit and seeing what happens in these very rare spots, but should definitely not be the main focus to study on. So yeah, I think the mistake happened on the flop. Here, it's important to have a very good range awareness. Your range is so strong on this board that you definitely want to be betting your entire range here. Let's move on to the next hand. That was a very interesting hand. I'm the nuts raises the cutoff. I think flatting is fine. I think 3-betting is fine. This is a spot I always make it depending on who's in the big blind. Big blind was an unknown to me at this point in time. But I think also this hand is very, very strong. And I think also 3-bet was on the higher side. So I went for a 3-bet close to 4x, like 3.5x. I think sizing wise is fine, like everything between 3.5x and 4x here with around 40 to 50 bigs is totally fine. I know people that like to make it very, very big. I think it shouldn't be any smaller. I think I'm just trying to attacking his offsuited aces and like very weak offsuited Broadway hands, and we also have a lot of playability post flop. So he opts to call. I think it's a board where we can do both. We can just bet very small, get a little bit of value from Broadways. We have a bunch of backdoor equity, like any diamond is going to be a no-brainer on the turn. What we're going to do, of course, calling. So this hand plays very well on a lot of turns. So I don't mind betting, but I prefer checking because I think for one reason that people are playing these boards way too passively. And I'm going to show you that in Pio. And that's, again, another reason why you should be studying strategy. You should be studying the theory as well, not just rely on exploitative plays, because if you don't have this fundamental knowledge of theory, it's really hard to make any exploits, right? So if we look at what happens against the check, this is what villain is supposed to bet. And I think this is not true. I think the betting frequency in position for most players is somewhere around 30, maybe even 25. I don't think people are betting all the king tens, all the king queens or king jacks. I think they very often just take a free card. I don't think this stabbing with this bottom pair hands is happening in that frequency. And also ace-6, ace-7, ace-8, which are very weak one pair hands, are checking back, trying to pot control. So I think in general, this is not very realistic. Our 3-betting range is looking like this. You can see a mix of everything. Like usually in theory, it looks more like frequency. So you 3-bet Jack-9 suited 30%, Queen-9 suited 50%, King-9 suited 50%. I like to simplify it a bit and say, okay, I'm going to call King-9 suited, I'm going to 3-bet Queen-9 suited, I'm going to 3-bet Queen, Jack-9 suited, call Jack-9 suited, call 10-9 suited, 3-bet 10-8 suited. Just going to make my life much easier in game. So, and I still have board coverage on pretty much every single board. And then, of course, also 3-betting some of these suited connectors and then a bit of 6-5 suited as well. I went for the check, and he goes for a roughly 22% pot size bet. Of course, we have a very easy call. Turn is a 5, and he goes for a check back. I perceive his range to be way more polarized, so I think it's either nothing. I don't think there's so much betting happening with, like, so, I mean, not to that frequency. Let's say not to that frequency, never say never. I think that ace-3, ace-deuce, ace-7 can definitely be betting, but not in that high frequency. So you will definitely have some one pair hands, some king jacks, king tens, I think, are definitely betting, maybe not that high frequency, maybe just 30-40%. Yeah, I think ace jacks, ace tens are definitely betting. So I think overall this range looks kind of okayish, but I just think that this frequency of betting is not happening in reality. Also, we can now preclude 5s from his range, or 3s, or ace queen. I think they would very often just keep betting. The river is a very interesting card, and if you look at our range, how we would play this spot, we have kings, we have king queen, we definitely have ace-5 in our range that we pot control the flop with and then check the turn. Check flop and turn. So in this particular spot, I think his range is a lot of king jack, king 10, some weak ace-x hands, ace-deuce, ace-4, ace-6, ace-7. And since our range is also value heavy, like not value heavy, but perceived value heavy, I really like an overbetting strategy on this runout to apply maximum pressure on his one pair hands. So it's because if we take a smaller sizing, it's much easier for him to or it's much harder for us to make his hero calls indifferent. So against this sizing, it's really hard for him to find the proper frequencies, right? If just put yourself in these shoes, if you have king jack, if you have ace four, what are you going to do, right? For us, it's pretty much just queen jack, queen 10, maybe jacks and tens that we played this way. So if it goes check, check, no, sorry, he bets. Check, bet, call, 5 in clubs, check, check, king of hearts. So we can have these aces. We have kings. We have some king queen combos. We have some queens combos for value. We can even be shoving ace 10s and ace 9s for value here because his range is so capped. No, ace 10, ace 9 is betting smaller. Sorry. So it's mainly the sets, king queens, ace 5s, and then we mix in some, as you can see here, queen jacks. However, and this is also the beautiful thing about PyroSolver and on all the other solver tools that are out there, is let's look at his river range. And as you remember, what I was mentioning on the flop is that I never believe that people are having king queen here. So he's supposed to bet king queen to a certain frequency and then check the turn, but he's probably never going to have king queen. That makes our bluff even better. And we should probably even be over bet shoving more on the river. Also, jack 10 in clubs might be barreling on the turn. So he has a bunch of very, very weak hands, and I think it just, also on the flop, his sizing is very small. We should always be calling jacks and 10s here. We almost get the immediate odds for our sets, plus we have the backdoor gut shot outs. So any king, any jack, any 10 will also give us additional outs for gut shot Broadway straight. So if we have jacks and 10s, we should always be calling on the flop. So we should be shoving jacks, 10s. We should be shoving queen jacks, queen 10s to make him fold king jacks, king 10s. And eventually he will fold some ace 4, ace 6, ace 7 type of hands. So I really like this line. And as you can see, there's a bit of overbet shoving happening with the queen jack and diamond combos. But in reality, I think we should even more overbet bluff here because villain will have less 2-pair combos on the river. And he folded and we take down a nice pot. And I think it works very well for your bluffs because perceived you have so many value hands. Oh, sorry, this way. Let's move on. This was a boring hand. That's just a flop. That's just a flop hand. This was a very interesting spot. So what happened here is that under the gun shoves for 6 big blinds. Zintoras calls and I decided to fold, which, it's definitely a very, very interesting spot. I just think that all the hands that I'm trying to fold out are probably shoving himself pre-flop anyway. And I have the feeling that he just tries to induce way too often. And I think it's a spot where a lot of players are going to wake up. If he would be shoving, it's quite margin here with ace queen off anyway. If he would be shoving his 20-25 big blinds, I would probably end up folding as well. He could be shoving all his ace jacks, ace 10s. And it might be better for me for my EV to call than shoving here because, I think that he is very likely not folding anymore. He has 50k. He already puts 50. There's already 38,000 in the middle. So, I found a hard time to put him on a hand that plays call fold. Maybe calling would be reasonable, just calling and then play a flop. But I think the frequency that he will wake up with a monster just is going to hurt my win rate a lot. And based on my experience, I think in these spots, people have it more often. And I encourage you guys to also pay a little more attention towards these spots. It looks like a no-brainer, right? There's 6 big blinds plus 6 big blinds in the middle plus blinds. We have fold equity. Looks like a nice shoving spot. But when you think about it, wouldn't you just, there's a 6 big blind guy. You have 20 to 25 big blind. I just ISO shove. nines, eights, those hands that might actually make sense to call and then fold against the shove. I just don't think they're in his range. I think he's just shoving over them, or if he has king queen, he's just shoving over it. It's really hard for me to find those hands he plays call fold with. And he even woke up with ace king, so his calling range might be even stronger. So I'm very happy that I found the fold, something you guys should also be paying attention to. That was a very interesting spot yesterday from the 2K high roller. Not yesterday, today it's Monday. I'm recording on Monday, so you're probably gonna watch it on Wednesday or Thursday. So I was playing this hand on Sunday. I went for 3-bet, sizing is fine, around 3x in position, villain calls, and we get this flop. We definitely want to be betting with, make him fold like king jack and diamonds or jack 10 and hearts, all these sort of hands, protect our hand, get a little bit of value from ace high floats. And then he went for a huge jam. There's 80k behind, like 75k behind. We bet 8k and he 9k and he jams to 75k. So I was thinking about this hand, and I think that kings are just fast playing often very pre-flop. I think that aces might raise to like 24k or 20k and also wants to reduce occasionally. Or just check call, especially with aces, with ace and clubs. I'm also a little bit afraid of king queen. I think ace queen is shoving pre-flop for the stack size. So then it's a lot of flush draws. And the beautiful thing about having the ace is that if he has ace 10 or ace jack, we take away a lot of his outs. Or if he has ace 4 in clubs, he could, of course, he could have 9-8 and jack 10 in diamonds and all these sorts of hands. But we're also flipping against those hands. It could be sixes, but yeah, that would be nasty. I did put it in Equilib. It looks like ridiculous to consider calling here. This is the range I was signing him. So basically the nut flush draws, jack 10, 9-8, 7-6 in spades, I think would also be reasonable to be shoving here. King queen, king jack, king 10 clubs. I think if he has queen jack in clubs or queen 10 in clubs, he's pretty much just raising the flop or just calling and calling. It's a hand that makes no sense to be shoving with. I think it's just way too strong. Maybe let's put in queen 10 clubs for the sake of making it even a bit more pessimistic. And yeah, and even has all king queen combos. Let's take out king queen clubs. I think he's never jamming king queen clubs. So he has the 2 combos of king queen suited. King 9 suited could be possible. Okay. And as you can see, we have close, around 39 to 40% equity, and we need 37. So I think here around 2 to 3% equity difference is already enough. And again, he still has queen 10 clubs, some king queens. Yeah, I think if we take out queen 10 clubs, it might get even a little bit more. Then it goes even up to 41. So I think in the worst case scenario, we have around 38 to 39%, like 39.5%, but it's probably around 40%. I think it's enough to make the call. And yeah, I decided to make the call in game. He had ace 10 in clubs, and we binged a very nice pot. Unfortunately, I busted close to the final table bubble. I cashed though, but yeah, it's always nice to go run deep in this tournament, especially on the final table. It's packed with very good regulars, and it's always exciting to compete on such a high level. So it's always a lot of fun and very challenging to reach the final table in the high roller 2K on Stars and Sundays. Yeah, also a very interesting spot. And I'm going to wrap it up for today. My plan is to do more of these quick review sessions where you can soak up a lot of knowledge in a short period of time. I hope you guys can incorporate that in your game. I will fire a couple of more review sessions in the next couple of weeks. If you have any questions, ideas, let me know. And then I wish you all the best at the table. Good luck, and then see you guys in the next video. Ciao.